Assalamu alaikum students. I'm Miss Azma Zahra here. As you know, we are learning about the chapter Features and Movement of the Earth. In the previous lecture, we learned about movement of the Earth, revolution and rotation. Because of these movements, we can observe different changings on the Earth. Because of the rotation, we can observe day and night. And due to revolution, we can observe seasonal changings. Today our topic is equinox and solstice. These are also depends on the movements of the earth. First we are learning about equinox. Equinox comes from the Latin word equi, which means equal, and nox means night. On the equinox, nights and days are nearly or exactly the same length, 12 hours. All over the world, this is the reason it's called an equinox. As I told you, it derived from a Latin word meaning equal nights. There are two types of equinoxes, the March equinox and the September equinox. The March equinox is also known as spring equinox. In March equinox, it is marks as the beginning of spring in the northern hemisphere. It is the southern hemisphere autumn fall or autumn equinox. At the same time, in the different hemispheres of the world, in northern hemisphere and in southern hemisphere, we can observe different type of seasons. If we have in month of March, if we have in the northern hemisphere spring season, at the same time we have autumn equinox in the southern hemisphere. Same as in September, the sun shines directly on the equator and the length of the day and night is nearly equal but not quite. Now, solstice. The word solstice comes from the Latin word sol, which means sun, and the sister meaning to stand still. Either of two times in the year, the summer solstice and the winter solstice, when sun reaches its highest or lowest point in the sky at noon, marked by the longest and shortest days. There are two types of solstice each year. One in December and one in June. The two solstices, the summer solstice having longest day of the year marking the start of summer, as well as the winter solstice having shortest day of the year marking the start of the winter. Summer solstice occurs in June 20 or 21, as well as the winter solstice occurs in December 21 or 22. You can observe the picture as well. In June, solstice is the longest day for the year in the northern hemisphere and the shortest day in the southern hemisphere. As you can see the picture, this is just because of the tilt of the earth. As the earth tilts, when the northern hemisphere faces the sun and gets the more sunlight, then the southern hemisphere having long nights. In the same way, when it is December, the northern hemisphere having long nights and the southern hemisphere having long days or short nights. This is a picture which shows equinox and solstice. The earth rotates around the sun and it gets different amount of heat in different times. So we have observed equinoxes as well as the solstice. We have an example of Australia and Pakistan. Pakistan lies in northern hemisphere and Australia lies in southern hemisphere. In June, when Pakistan having the longest day or the long nights, at the same time Australia faces the short nights or the winter season. Now there is a video. Let's watch the video for further details.
In a year there are 4 seasons: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Each season lasts 3 months. The seasons occurs in a cycle: spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Again spring starts. Solstices. Summer and winter have a midpoint. This midpoint is called solstices. The summer solstice is referred to as the longest day and the shortest night of the year. On this day, the number of hours of daylight are at their maximum, while the number of hours of darkness are at their minimum. The winter solstice is referred to as the shortest day and longest night of the year. On this day, the number of hours of daylight are at their minimum, while the number of hours of darkness are at their maximum. During one half of the year, the north side of the earth is tilted towards the sun, and the south is tilted away from the sun. For the other half of the year, the north side of the earth is tilted away from the sun, and the south is tilted toward the sun. When the northern hemisphere is most tilted towards the sun, the northern hemisphere receives most sunlight, and experiences its summer solstice. While the southern hemisphere receives least sunlight, and has its winter solstice. This occurs around June 21st. When the northern hemisphere is most tilted away the sun, the northern hemisphere receives least sunlight, and experiences its winter solstice. While the southern hemisphere receives most sunlight, and has its summer solstice. This occurs around December 21st. Equinox. On the equinox, night and day are nearly the same length. 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, all over the world. On the equinoxes, the tilt of the Earth's axis is perpendicular to the sun's rays. The sun shines directly on the equator. There are 2 equinoxes every year, in September and March, when the sun shines directly on the equator, and the length of day and night is nearly equal. The March equinox is the spring, or vernal equinox in the northern hemisphere, marking the start of spring. In the southern hemisphere, it is the autumnal or fall equinox, which marks the beginning of fall. This happens on March 20, every year. The September equinox is also known as the autumnal or fall equinox in the northern hemisphere, and is considered the first day of fall. In the southern hemisphere, it is known as the vernal or spring equinox, and marks the first day of spring. This happens on September 22nd, every year.
Now summary of the topic. Equinox means equal night. There are 2 types of equinoxes. The word solstice means sun stands still, as well as there are 2 solstices each year, one in December and one in June. Now you have task to do. You have to do these questions in your book, in your copies. Question number 1. What is equinox and why it is called the equinox? Define solstice and its effects. Then question number 3. Do the fill in the blanks and choose the best answer from your book, page number 57.